Even if some of the smallest countries on Earth never existed, it would have massive ripple effects throughout our timeline. Let's see how bad it gets by outer side. What if Austria never existed? I mean, this is... First of all, let's just get the memes out of the way. There would be no world wars. That would also mean no Mustache Man too, because remember, he was from Austria.
First, Germany and Italy will share a coastline, and Switzerland will become a coastal nation. Culturally, the world would lose its classical music capital. No Vienna means no Mozart.
Oh, that's true, Vienna. I like to describe Vienna as like the Paris of the German-speaking world. It's a very artsy city, and the amount of historical figures that visited Vienna is insane. For example, in 1913, Hitler, Freud, Trotsky, Franz Joseph, and Stalin all lived in the same city at the same time. Maybe that place just does something to you.
No Beethoven, no Strauss, and here is a big one. No Austria means no Red Bull, no Swarovski, and no OMV. Historically, no Austria means no Habsburg Empire.
Yes.
No
that's a good point.
Austro-Hungarian.
I actually didn't even... Okay, that's a good one. I should have mentioned that. No Habsburgs, and the Habsburg Empire got massive.
Power that shaped Central Europe for centuries. Perhaps the First World
Remember,
War...
I mean, one thing that keeps popping into my head, the Battle of Austria for Austria against the Ottomans. Sorry, it's the Battle of Vienna, where the winged hussars arrives. Unlimited alternative histories about if Vienna actually fell to the Ottomans at this time.
Perhaps the First World War would never have started without the assassination in Sarajevo, radically changing the history of Europe and the world.
What I was going to say about that comment is, would Germany or the great powers of that time still found a way to get into a war? Probably. But would it have been a world war status? I would argue maybe not.
European geography would be completely different. Without the natural barrier of the Alps, movement between northern and southern Europe would be much easier, potentially changing migration, trade, and even military strategies.
Yeah, the Romans might have actually been able to get over there too. The extent of their empire really just goes to the outer edges of Austria, but if this is just a lake, then maybe they do get deeper into Europe than ever before. Who knows? Like, this is the perfect example. I mean, Austria is a medium-sized country currently in Europe, but like without it, the world would be completely unrecognizable, no doubt. Yeah, I was waiting for that comment, but okay. What if Austria never existed? World peace? Again, no comment. All right, now here's obviously a much bigger one. I mean, India has the most people in the world. I mean, it's unfathomable how much things would be different in this world, but I still think there's a lot of minor details that people would forget about.
First, Pakistan and Bangladesh would be nothing more than coastlines, and the Himalayas would rise dramatically from the sea, forming an isolated barrier between China and the ocean. Without India's role in the...
Sri Lanka would be completely isolated too in the Indian Ocean.
Spice trade, European explorers might never have set sail. No Vasco da Gama's discovery, no race for colonial dominance. The global economy would have developed without Indian cotton, tea, and spices.
Hard to imagine.
Culturally, no India means no Bollywood, no yoga, no iconic Indian cuisine. The world would lose the Taj Mahal and the power of cricket.
This, honestly, I mean, that's a lot of stuff. This still barely scratches the surface. I don't think we're even fully able to comprehend what the world would be like. I mean, there's no mention here of the British Empire. I mean, that's something that definitely my mind goes to. What does the British decide to do in this case without their crown jewel? I honestly wonder if there's more efforts from the European powers to completely capitulate China, because they definitely wanted to. I mean, they got pretty close. I mean, they basically all kind of carved up India before, the British took it all, and many powers, like for instance Spain, literally had lots of plans to take over that whole landmass. The British obviously had the Opium Wars, and there were many times where the European powers fought the Chinese, but I mean, maybe that's like that, but times 10 without India. This is just a random thought that I went down. I mean, there's just so many other like loose ends. I don't even think we can begin to imagine it, like I said. Bro forgot the most important thing, the number 0. No museums in British. Without India, there's no reason for Christopher Columbus to discover the Americas. I mean, these comments are fascinating. There's so many little aspects that I didn't think about, but yeah, it's insane. Really love this one. What if Portugal never existed? Again, another country that, you might think would not make that much of a difference. It would make such a crazy world. Everyone always forgets just how big and how far the Portuguese Empire stretched at one point. Their colonial holdings alone was like 10 times bigger than the European nation territory itself.
Spain would stretch all the way to the Atlantic, controlling the entire west coast of Europe. Well, and here is the big one. No Portugal means no Cristiano Ronaldo. The whole sports world would be missing a legend. Historically, with Without Portugal, the world would be unrecognizable. Vasco da Gama would never have traced the sea routes to India and Brazil. The Spanish Empire would expand further.
Well, not in the way that we see it, obviously. They'd probably be speaking Spanish.
Tightening its grip on Africa and South America, reshaping the course of global exploration and colonization. Without Portuguese culture, we lose iconic traditions like fad and pastéis de nata. Imagine a world where Spain controls everything from the Mediterranean to the Atlantic.
I mean, that's what I was thinking of, the Treaty of Tordesillas. Portugal doesn't divide all the continents between Spain and themselves. But I don't know, does that necessarily mean that Spain just controls everything? I mean, they'd already stretched themselves out pretty thin. First of all, they probably would have gone straight after modern-day Brazilian territory. They wouldn't have had to wrap up around this way. The only reason they did that was for that Treaty of Tordesillas. They were supposed to allow Portugal to have all this. I wonder if that means they colonized less of North America. Or true, I mean, technically Portugal was supposed to have all of Africa too. Do they focus more on Africa? I don't necessarily think that eliminating Portugal automatically makes Spain a lot bigger, but Portugal was a nice counterweight throughout all of Spain's history. It's a tough one. Without Portugal, Spain would have never discovered the Americas because it was Portugal that began the age of discoveries. Messi been real quiet since this dropped. It's funny because obviously a lot of Americans think that in Brazil they speak Spanish, but an actual Spanish-influenced Brazil would be such a different place. Like, it's kind of it's so weird. I can't imagine Brazil in Spanish. And with obviously the Spanish cultures that come with that. What if the Philippines never existed?
First, the South...
Now, we just got done talking about Spain. Spain obviously has a good connection to the Philippines. So does the British. So does America. Then there's all the regional powers like China as well.
The sea would be a vast open water, with countries like Vietnam and Indonesia gaining much larger coastlines and access to maritime routes.
Much larger coastlines. Did you mean to say that? I don't think they physically would gain coastlines, but whatever.
Historically, the Philippines' strategic importance in global shipping lanes and geopolitics would be lost, potentially allowing other powers like Japan or China to dominate the region. No Philippines means no Manny Pacquiao, no Jollibee, and no vibrant Filipino festivals like Sinulog or Ati-Atihan. The absence of Filipino overseas workers would leave a significant gap in global labor markets, especially in healthcare and service industry.
Oh yeah, there goes all our nurses. It's over for us. Don't forget all the languages we would lose there too, because they speak so many. It's actually way more complicated than most people think. It's not just all Tagalog. And I wonder, without the Philippines, does the world like Spain or Britain or America just focus on colonizing Japan? I think it's definitely possible. I was thinking about, like, in terms of weather, typhoons, even like tsunamis, Vietnam would be on the chopping block. I would lose like 10% of my audience overnight. One of the countries that have used me the most is the Philippines. I thought that was just on my cruise. Apparently that is a common thing. That would be rough. What if Germany never existed? Oh, the age-old question. This is probably one of the most common what if blank country ever existed scenarios. It's, again, I mean, it's up there in terms of India. Like, we can't even fathom.
German Ocean, where the country once was, Switzerland, Austria, and the Czech Republic would all enjoy the coast, and Denmark would be an island. Historically, the world would be unrecognizable. No Germany means no World War II, which means Europe.
But again, I mean, I think this scenario is a little bit more, it's less interesting. The Austrian one was fascinating to me because it seems like it's a seemingly small place, but its impact is so large. This is a large place and its impact is so large. Like, like all the things we talked about, it's very, very similar.
By empires and colonial powers. No Cold War.
Luckily, I don't know if the Roman times gets affected much. I mean, the Romans didn't get much into modern day Germany anyways. I mean, those German barbarians maybe don't ultimately lead to the fall of Rome, but I don't know.
No NATO, no European Union, no United Nations.
This is such a big question. I can't, I'm just like yapping away here, but this is such a crazy question. I don't know where to begin. This one is like, it's futile to even try to explain what the world would be like. There's thousands and thousands of ways to tackle this question.
Might seem more peaceful, but in reality, we would face endless wars between empires. And here's a big one. Without German engineers, you can say goodbye to your favorite.
I think that France becomes extremely dominant, that for sure. I mean, just as dominant as they were, but I think they might even get more crazier. I mean, remember, France didn't really start taking a whole lot of L's up until Germany came around. I mean, they took a couple of L's from Britain, but Yeah, like a pretty big L the British handed to the French was during the 7 Years' War, but would this have been the case without Prussia? No Germany would also probably mean no Prussia as well.
Say goodbye to your favorite cars like BMW, Volkswagen, Mercedes.
No Autobahn either.
More, you can say goodbye to NASA and the space race.
Oh, well, yeah, because we stole a bunch of German scientists for NASA. That's kind of funny. I don't even really want to tackle this question. It's just such a big, like, I don't even, it's dumb. Like, it doesn't make any sense for me to tackle this question because there's just so many things. No Germany, no burger. No Germany, no donor. No Germany, no car, buy everything. Like, man, oh dang, an artist who isn't accepted in art school moving to France or Italy instead. No Protestantism, no communism, no Albert Einstein, no computers. The painter would have had to go somewhere else. That's a good point. No good Minecraft music. Austria would be like, why are we speaking German? What even is a Yeah, I guess they'd be speaking Austrian. What if Mexico never existed? Wow. Well, I mean, the Spanish Empire, they wouldn't take over the Aztecs. I mean, Manifest Destiny from the US would still happen, obviously.
The United States would stretch all the way to Central America, directly bordering countries like Guatemala and Belize.
Are you saying, like through our naval power, basically?
Culturally, no Mexico means no mariachi, no tacos, no Dia de los Muertos, no
culinary loss would be insane.
On global cuisine. Iconic figures like Hugo Sanchez, Carlos Fuentes, and more wouldn't exist.
Yeah,
historically, the absence of Mexico would mean no
Mexican-American War, which could alter the entire landscape of U.S. expansion. The Spanish colonization of the Americas would...
Yeah, that's a big one right there. Perhaps the Spanish Empire colonizes the east coast of the U.S. instead. That's definitely a thing. Remember, they got Florida.
Also have been different, with the Aztec Empire possibly lasting longer or the region remaining less developed. And here's a big one.
Well, that's the other thing. Do indigenous people even get to South America? Probably, but maybe less. And do the Aztecs just set up shop somewhere in Texas right there?
No Mexico means no Cancun, no tequila, and no Cinco de Mayo celebrations worldwide.
Yeah, also, Mexico is one of the most visited places on Earth. I think it's between France or Mexico. I mean, it really depends on what year you're looking at because this stuff is constantly changing annually. Don't forget, the U.S. itself would just be completely unrecognizable. I think we take for granted just how much culturally Mexico delivered to us. Or forgot, no Mexico means no chocolate. That is true, no Panama Canal in that case. We started this video off with one Alpine nation, and if they never existed, now the other. This is hilarious because Austria, like I talked about in the very beginning, I think leads to so many massive ripple effects. Completely world-changing, obviously. Switzerland... there's gonna be a lot of memes that literally nothing changes because of their neutrality. I mean, I'm trying to argue against that because obviously there would be changes, but let's just watch the video because I'm gonna need a little bit of help.
Massive alpine lake instead of Switzerland.
A
France,
massive lake.
Germany, and Italy would share the shores, but there's no Swiss neutrality anymore. Just water.
Also chocolate. We were just talking about chocolate. Swiss chocolate's a big thing. I mean, the Swiss came up with a lot of great inventions. There'd be, plenty of products lost in the world.
Switzerland history changes dramatically. There is no neutral ground for peace talks or international
That's true. They did do a pretty good job of
United Nations
keeping things
and the
diplomatic,
Red Cross
obviously.
would need a new base. And forget about Swiss banks. No secret accounts or global financial center. Without the Swiss, Europe would lose its model of direct democracy and political stability. Oh, and no more Rolex, Nestle, Logitech, and many others companies.
I mean, this video didn't help as much as I thought it was going to be. I love Switzerland. Don't get me wrong. The no Austrians, massive. The no Switzerland... Dang. No Switzerland means no Geneva Conventions. We know where this is going. Yeah. So war crimes, more of those. Well, there's always war. I mean, okay. Buff Liechtenstein. No more Nestle. Yeah, people kind of want that. Nestle's kind of bad. No more Nestle. Is that supposed to be a bad thing? Wow, this is actually really hilarious. I mean, I'm gonna even look at these comments, and I don't see a whole. There are so many things the Pope would have had Swedish guards. Yeah, the Swiss did send a lot of mercenaries out, which I'm sure affected a lot of battles and wars throughout Europe. This is just really hilarious. There's plenty of things. There's plenty of big ripple effects the world would lose without Switzerland, but it's a lot harder to talk about. Anyways, nice job, Outer Side. Please go subscribe. As always, big thanks to my patrons. Month 2 in Drew's basement. Drew's Argentinian Grandpa.
DOOCHBAGGINS.
Boys. I can't
Connor
sleep.
Pavlik.
Kansas was mentioned.
Amateur Archaeology.
aPhatNarwhal.
Carmel
Fredrik
InquisitorXarius.
Tibblin. KingBearHaze.
KirinoIsBestGirl.
LuxembourgLover.
Mgmluthegoat.
Tyrol.
Tambre.
Mexican 760.
ZaneyBoi.
Like your name here. Check that link to Patreon down below.